There's actually a lot of research on this, lots of research on this. So what we're talking about is something called attachment theory. If anyone wants to geek out to it, this is attachment theory. There's research about attachment to God. And what we see is that, yes, absolutely, God can be the secure attachment figure. However, here's what's interesting. Most of the time, you see someone's relationship to God and the security or insecurity in their relationship with God mirror their other relationships. So in other words, if I am insecurely attached to my mom, my dad, my wife, whatever, I actually have an insecure attachment to God. And how does that show up? Well, a lot of these studies, what they did is they actually had people share like the content of their prayer lives. And you can analyze the language to determine the security or insecurity and type of insecurity that people have with God. It overlays perfectly with the types of security and insecurity that people have with other humans. So yes, God can be that attachment figure, but it's not the quick fix. It's not like, I know God, therefore I have secure attachment. You have to work on that relationship just like any other one.
So I wonder on that attachment theory, does the theory go that? So I'm coming at this with a semi answer in my head. So I'm going to give you the semi answer in my head so that you can poke holes in it. Especially men, we have a tendency, like if a man had a bad relationship with their father, it's much more difficult to get that understanding of a biblical father relationship with God, right? Because okay, well, my dad left me, so this is just like what representation do I have, right? So, is that attachment theory? Does that go to because I have negative attachments with people in my life, I apply that to God automatically, or is it coming from the other direction? Like I'm not sure how to attach to God, so I'm attaching to other people the same way. And I would venture to guess it depends on when they had a relationship with God and when they had a relationship with people. So it could go a bunch of ways. But
I think it could go a bunch of ways. I think probably this is just speculation on my part. It's probably more the former though, right? Because early on, children are very concrete. It takes a while for children to get to that place of abstract thought and concepts, right? Like God, and spirituality is in many ways abstract, although we want to make it concrete and should in every practical and accurate way we can. But so what happens is we come into the world, okay, where we need attachment. In fact, to the point that before attachment theory arrived on the scene, a guy named John Bowlby is the father of attachment theory. He was a British psychologist in the early and mid 20th century. The primary line of thought was that like an infant attaching to the mother was because the mother fed the infant. So the attachment relationship was considered a secondary drive to the drive for food, essentially, sustenance, right? So the thinking was the infant attaches to the mother because the mother provides the food. Come around the 40s and 50s, there's all kind of research coming out that is just not true. That actually these children need that attachment as a primary drive, and so that's where you had like Russian orphanages where there were terrible experiments where kids died because they were provided food and shelter, they were cleaned, but they weren't held, they weren't nurtured, they weren't being talked to and all of this. And it was called failure to thrive. And many of them just died, right? And all sorts of stuff like that. So because what's happening is, so in psychology, there's these concepts called the internal working model of self and other. So I have this internal working model of self. So in other words, that's kind of who I see myself as, how I experience myself, my identity, and then internal working model of other, who I believe you to be, who I experience you as, who I'm anticipating you to be. And in infancy, those two are related. So like right now, we both got kids about the same age, that 1-year-old, right? That 1-year-old, the way we approach that child, that baby, right? The way we respond when the baby cries, the way we mirror the baby's face. The baby goes, oh, and we go, oh, what is that? Right? Or, the baby goes, and we go, oh, what's the matter? And we're mirroring the baby. We're responsive. And all of that is training that child to understand who he or she is.
Mm-hmm.
So the mirrored experience of the other and who the other's experience as activates and is the foundation of the sense of who we are. So carry that into adulthood, right? And this is why, let's say someone had an abusive father, okay? And then they get around men in adulthood and they puff up and they get aggressive or they shrink, whatever that response was. It's because a particular working model of other gets activated and it creates in them, or it activates in them, a corresponding internal working model of self. Yeah. So I got way in the weeds there.
No, I love it. Yeah, I enjoy those conversations. Now, I guess my next question is going to go to our kids, to go back to that. How do you as a dad now look at the theories that you look at the past that you have, look at what you experience in your practice and say, how am I raising my kids? What should I be saying to my kids? How should I be talking to my kids to make sure that, I forgot who it was that said, I'd be like, there's no chance that you haven't screwed up your kid already, right? So it's just a matter of how much you screw your kid up, right? And in what ways you screw your kid up, right? Because we are still human. We're all still going to do things that we shouldn't. And I can't count how many times I've had to apologize to my kids for doing something that I should not have done, right? But that doesn't mean that we don't have a view on how we should be fathers to them, to know that we're treating them right, that we're not causing long-term harm to them, especially as we're, quote unquote, working in the business for our kids. Mm-hmm. So how is it that you practically be a dad while thinking about all these things and making sure that you are not doing any of that long-term harm?
So I'll give you a pithy, catchy answer, and then I'll make it more practical if you want me to. So, I want my daughters to look at me as their father and learn what their heavenly father's like. And knowing that I will do that imperfectly, I want to own it with them every time I fail at that. So if I could do that, if I can show up representing the character of their heavenly father, trying to show them the love to whatever degree it's humanly possible for me, that I know their heavenly father has for them. And every single time I fail at that, acknowledge it, own it as such. Then I think I'm doing a pretty dang good job. Okay. So what does that mean? Well, that means, guess what? I need to do self-regulation. Mm-hmm. When my 3-year-old, when I'm running late, and this is this morning, okay? I'm running late. It's my day to take her to school, to preschool, right? I've got an 8:30 appointment. I know, I'm doing all the number crunching in my head, and she is sitting on the floor. She wants to wear these socks and these shoes, and these socks don't even fit her anymore, and these shoes aren't appropriate for school. And we're, what am I doing here first? Mm-hmm. What am I doing here first so that the way I show up with her is appropriate, and because it's going to pour into her, and it's still kind and loving, which doesn't mean she can do whatever she wants. Which I'll come back. Well, I'll say that now. And I'm totally blanking on his name. It'll come to me later, and I'll give him credit. But there's a psychotherapist up in the Pacific Northwest. He's written a whole bunch of books. He's at Seattle School of Theology. That's enough for someone to Google and figure out who I'm talking about. But he wrote a book on parenting, and he said children want to know 2 things: am I loved, and can I do whatever I want? Yes, no. Oh, now we have balloons. Oh,
geez. Now you're celebrating with balloons. For those of you not listening, you need to come on to see all of the amazing things Jake can do with his computer.
Some update. There must be some update. I can't stand these things, these updates. Anyway, but those are the 2 things, right? Am I loved, and can I do whatever I want? And we're trying to find that place where they always know, yes, I'm loved. No, I can't do whatever I want. Right? That's the sweet spot. but sometimes they can do what they want, right? And that's fun too, to get to do a little bit of spoiling, a little bit of splurging, and that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. There's that show or that movie, Yes Day, where the parents will let they cannot say no to anything the kids request, right? And my kids have asked me, "Can we do a yes day?" I said, "Absolutely not. Absolutely not. That's not a healthy thing to
sounds like
do
a terrible idea.
It's a horrendous idea. Like, it sounds hilarious and sounds awesome. There's like this part where they go through, and I didn't actually watch the show with the kids, but they, I think my wife was with them. Mom was watching that with you, right, buddy? So they like go through a car wash with all the windows down. I'm like, do you know how destroyed my car would be if I said yes to that? That's a terrible idea. Why would I do that?
Terrible. Yeah,
it's a horrendous idea. You get soap in your eyeballs. Everybody be crying by the time we got out of there. I'd have $40,000 in damage in the car, and I don't even have a $40,000 car. Like, I don't like. Jeez.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But I do like that concept of, am I loved, and can I do whatever I want, right?